Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And me, DJ Ross.
And my faithful sidekick. Or am I your faithful sidekick?
Oh. Now
Each week on Video Game... sorry, what?
Nothing. Just continue.
It was a rhetorical question. I didn't think you were going to answer it. Each week on Video Game Hangover...
No rhetorical questions here on Video Game Hangover.
Stop. We talk about the games that are keeping us up at night until DJ interrupts me. This week, proving once and for all that he is my sidekick. Silence. This week, we are playing Disney Illusion Island and Asura's Wrath.
Was that up for debate? Who the sidekick was?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Trying to drum up controversy. Subscriptions are down. We need to get people talking.
Oh, all right. Well, let me go... say some terrible things on the internet. That'll take care of it.
Yes, yeah. I actually can't support that. I don't know if subscriptions are down or memberships. We're not selling memberships. What are we selling?
No, we're not selling memberships.
No.
We're not selling anything. Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe that is the mistake we've made. Yes, the fatal flaw.
The reason profits are down is there are no sales.
Never were
nothing
any.
was on sale to begin with.
Yes. Business is flat to LY in the year before.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get our way back to the normal podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Hi.
Oh, hello.
How are you? How was your weekend?
I had a good weekend. You know what I did this weekend? I did something that is normally considered impossible.
Ooh.
Which is I obtained the Nintendo 64 Switch controller.
Oh.
Remember this thing?
I do.
Remember Nintendo 64, guys?
Yeah.
Remember GoldenEye?
I have the NES one.
Oh, okay.
That slide into the place of the Joy-Con, and so you have two weird old NES controllers glommed onto the side of your Switch. I've put them on once and went, oh, that's kind of cool, and that was it.
Yeah, I have the Super Nintendo one. I only have one, and I don't think it actually attaches to the Switch. They probably learned their lesson with the NES one.
Probably for the better.
Yeah, but this Nintendo 64 one, this is has been quite difficult to actually to place an order for. Like, first of all, you need to be signed up with their online thing just to have the privilege of attempting to order one of these. And I've made multiple attempts. I get those notifications that are like, oh, it's in stock. It's here. You can buy one. And by the time I've made it through checkout, they're like, oh, just kidding. We only made one of them again. We'll see you again in 6 months.
It is not your turn.
Yeah. And I don't know what happened. I don't even know why I was on the page. Just browsing the Nintendo site as you do. And it popped up. It was in stock. I said, at one point in my life, I wanted one of these things. I don't know if that's still the case, but the opportunity is too good. I have to do it. And sure enough, one of these things arrived on my doorstep this weekend.
Oh, nice. That was quick.
Yeah, so I have it. I'm holding it as we're recording the show. So it's real. It's real. And I played some N64 games with it.
GoldenEye all day.
I played a little bit of GoldenEye. The N64 is such a weird case because, the controller's super weird, right?
Yeah.
And then, as we were saying a little bit last week, Nintendo, it's like their signature thing is they come up with this idea for a console, or something that they build a console around, in this case, the controller, maybe like the analog stick, first and foremost. But then they end up with this library of games that I feel like are best experienced using that weird, unique piece of hardware. Ever since they added the N64 games to the Switch Online thing, and when they came out with that Super Mario All-Stars collection, which had Super Mario 64 on it, You can play all of those with a regular controller, but they just feel a little off because you're not using this mutant, like 3-pronged analog stick.
Oh, and so the controls from the Nintendo 64 days have been kind of remapped to modern controllers, to the Joy-Con specifically, and it doesn't feel right to you.
Yeah. In a lot of cases, they're fine, but it's just not quite the same. Even like Mario 64, the controls are like pretty functional on a regular controller. But like I had that whole ordeal when I tried to play GoldenEye. That just is a disaster on a regular controller. You have to do a bunch of button remapping. I forget what else is on the N64 online thing at this point, but I think that was my justification for wanting this in the first place, is it'll just remove any weird sort of lingering barrier between me being able to enjoy these old N64 games.
Oh, cool.
So now I have it. I played some GoldenEye, which controls much better than using that weird button remapping thing that I had to sort of contrive a few months ago. It's still pretty like archaic at this point, the way GoldenEye controls, but it did feel like a little closer to how I remembered actually playing it on the N64.
And you're using, if I'm remember correctly, you're using the analog stick for character movement, and you're still trying to like look around with the D-pad, right? Is that how it worked?
Well, those are the default controls, but the way I always played GoldenEye was having those swapped.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's probably smart, actually.
I guess, although it's weird because that's essentially how modern first-person controls work, except, the left and right sides are swapped. So my right thumb would be doing the movement in GoldenEye, and then on another first-person shooter, it would be doing the free look, that sort of thing.
Because the D-pad is on the right prong on the Nintendo 64 controller.
Yeah, you use those C buttons. Because there is no second analog stick, which is just another weird thing about the controller.
The trigger always felt good. I like the trigger on it because it felt like you were kind of holding a gun.
Yeah, like the trigger, I remember thinking, like, why is there a trigger down there? But it actually,
on the back.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny, they added, so there's a few differences between this and a regular N64 controller. The most notable thing is that it's wireless, which is kind of cool because I've never had a wireless N64 controller. And then they've added like the switch home and screenshot buttons. But then there's also this tiny little additional button on the top, which is ZR, which on the Switch is the right trigger. And it's funny because it's not symmetrical. There's just one extra ZR button on top. And I was like, what happened to ZL? And then I just remembered, that's the trigger and the center pylon or whatever. So all buttons are accounted for. They just move them to a bunch of weird places all over the controller. So just the design legacy of the N64 controller lives on in 2023.
Yeah. Sorry, I am looking at a picture of it now, and I forgot that there actually is a D-pad on here on the left-hand side, but you're right. They call them the C buttons. Up, down, left, right. Single buttons rather than a toggle. Yes, it's a very weird controller.
It's so funny because it feels like it made sense at the time. It's like, a joystick, of course. And then you have these buttons to control the camera or whatever. And then I don't remember how long it was before Sony or whoever came out with the first dual analog controller before they hit the market. But it was like, that makes so much more sense. They were so close with this thing, and then they were just stuck with this weird Trident controller for like the next 5 or 6 years.
They were halfway there.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess that's, you can only innovate so much at a time. It was kind of just a mind-blowing thing to see this.
Is the size the same as the classic controller, or is it smaller? Bigger?
It's exactly the same as far as I can tell.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, it's so weird because I haven't held an actual N64 controller in so long. So just picking this thing up, I was like, I guess this is feels pretty close to how I remember it. There's no wire, of course, and also they've filled in the expansion pack slot because normally you could put like a memory card or more famously the Rumble pack would slot in there. But now it's just like a solid thing. I guess the battery is in there because it's like got a rechargeable battery.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, sorry, I interrupted you. What other games did you check out in the Switch Online?
Oh, well, I had to try GoldenEye to see if that worked, and it was fine. And I did Mario 64. I actually played the All-Stars version because I heard that was compatible with this thing. And yeah, it is. And it just feels like playing Mario 64 with all the just control weirdness included. But that's always fun to come back to. And then since we were talking about F-Zero 99 last week, I played a little bit of F-Zero X on the N64. And man, that was a good game. I ended up playing quite a bit of that. And it controls great. I mean, I feel like you could probably get away with playing F-Zero X on a regular controller, but, there's just something about, like, that weird, like, controller grip. And playing an N64 game on it, this just feels much more authentic than using a remapped controller. Like, your fingers are where they're supposed to be. Like, they're on that center trigger, they're on the weird face buttons, they're on the, like, R shoulder button and never the L shoulder button because you don't hold the controller that way ever. It's funny, I had to look up the controls because there's no manual for how the game works, and I needed to remind myself. And there is, like, some function on the left shoulder button that was just something that was so auxiliary because you just are never able to press it during gameplay. So I was like, oh, that's hilarious that they even bothered. But they did use the entire controller. It's impressive.
Cool. I mean, the game that I probably spent the most amount of time with that controller had to be Perfect Dark, because that was the one that was like the Nintendo 64 game that got me.
Yeah. No, I'm waiting for that to hit the online thing, which it probably never will because of, I think Microsoft owns some of the rights to that, or no, Rare does. And
well, Microsoft
owns Rare. So that's probably never going to happen, unfortunately. But we still have GoldenEye, at least.
Yeah. Which was Rare at some point as well, so somebody's cutting deals.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they finally worked something out to get the rights, or not the rights, but to get it on both the Switch and Xbox Live. But I feel like that's less likely to happen to Perfect Dark because nobody cares about Perfect Dark, really.
Maybe in advance of that new Perfect Dark reboot, that may never happen.
Yeah, well, we'll see if that ever happens, first of all.
It's been like 6 years in the making at this point.
Yeah. But anyway, now I feel like, man, there are so many weird N64 games on there that I've never played, or that I've played less than I would have liked to. And now I feel like there's just no excuse left for me not to be playing those. So I may spend a little more time with it in the coming weeks now that I have this thing.
There is no obstacle between you and just an unlimited number of, Nintendo 64 games that are also on the Switch.
Right. I didn't actually have that many N64 games when the console was, like, current.
Yeah.
Because, one, they're very expensive, and two, I spent all my gaming time during those years playing RPGs on the PlayStation, so who had time to play stuff like Wave Race or, I don't know, Pilot Wings?
Yeah, I had very few. I mean, I bought it for Perfect Dark, and eventually also got GoldenEye, and that was kind of it. I had a friend who had like a cool little carry case full of Nintendo 64 games, and he would come over and we would play games, and until the sun came up sometimes. But the two games I think I owned and probably still own, I think they're in a box in my closet, are Perfect Dark and GoldenEye. So I never really sort of ventured too far out of that realm.
Yeah, I think I only had like 4 games for the longest time. It was GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Super Smash Brothers, and Ocarina of Time.
Oh, nice.
Because you had that Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. I know. I was late on the Zelda games. I didn't get to those until much later.
I didn't have my own copy of Mario 64 until college, which is funny because I didn't have an N64 in college. I just felt like I needed to have that game. And now it's just all over the place. But whatever. I could play Majora's Mask. I never had a lot of time with that game. Anyway,
cool.
The possibilities are limitless.
Add that to the service earlier this year, so that's all in there.
Yeah.
Nice. I quickly Googled pictures of the Nintendo 64 controller to jog my memory, and the first article that comes up is The Verge, and it says Nintendo has restocked the ever elusive N64 controller for the Switch, and then in parentheses it says update, it's sold out.
Yeah, like why would they even bother publishing that? It's like sold out by the time anybody sees the article.
Sure. DJ bought the last one, bought the only one. Just somehow
I got the controller this time. It was mine.
It says here, purchased by DJ Ross, Mountain View, California.
Wait. Oh man, better luck next time, guys. See you in 6 months.
Wait, it's got your home address? No.
Yeah. No home invasions this week, please.
It's weird. They only took the controller.
Yeah. Man, these things, I don't know what it is. Because I always think of the Nintendo 64 as like, man, it didn't have that many games that I was really interested in playing, but maybe I just overlooked them because I was busy with other stuff.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people grew up with the Nintendo 64, so this is a huge deal to them. They gotta have that controller.
Do I need this? I don't know if I need this.
Do you personally need an N64 controller?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, you're probably right. I mean, I don't need the NES one, and they got me on that. So
yeah, like why do you have one of those?
Because they were doing a thing because Nintendo Switch. It was the first one they released of the retro controllers they inevitably put out, and I don't know, it just seemed really cool, and I should probably have it. And then used it.
Is that where you played Zelda last year?
No, that would have been a good idea though. Look at you with the good ideas.
Yeah, I was like, you don't even like NES games.
I don't
maybe
like old
the Super
games.
Nintendo one would make more sense for you.
I mean, it looks cool on a shelf. I put it back in its package and folded the top in, and it's sitting right there on a shelf next to my toys.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
It's like one of the most iconic pieces of like gamer memorabilia, that NES controller.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's sort of the collectively understood ideal for what a controller looks like for most people.
Yeah.
As much as Atari would love that to be the single button joystick, I imagine, but
yeah, not quite.
Cool. I just think of that T-shirt that like everybody's dad has that says "classically trained" and it's got the old controller on.
Yeah, like old school or whatever.
Oh, I bought this at Kohl's. That's the controller, man. That's the way to do it.
That's the one. Somehow everybody just knows that controller.
Right.
Despite being born in 2001.
Cool. That's a neat toy. I'm a little jealous, but I will save my $50.
Yeah.
Plus it's out of stock anyway, so.
Plus, you can't get it even if you wanted one. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I have maybe a little bit of buyer's remorse just because it's paid $60 for an N64 controller in 2023, but I am going to get my $60 worth of enjoyment out of this just playing all those games that I never made it to back in the day. So
we should ask our listeners, what is the definitive N64 gaming experience that really uses that controller? If you have a suggestion for DJ, you can email him at dj@vghangover.com or join our Discord and chime in there and let him know.
I mean, it's got to be Mario 64, right? It's going to be one of those big first-party Nintendo games. Either that or like Smash Brothers was pretty creative about how they used the controller, and that ended up being, sort of shaping how just the gameplay worked for the next 20, 25 years. But, if there's something that's more iconic, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah.
When are they going to come out with a fake GameCube controller, though? I think that would really move some units.
Some update to the Wavebird.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't need to be a Wavebird anymore. It could just be a regular wireless GameCube controller. Yeah.
It's weird that they've never resurrected that as a brand, though. Like, you would think there would have been, like, the new Nintendo Switch 2023 Wavebird or something, like, rather than the Pro controller. They have a cool name. They could have just stuck with that.
I feel like the Wavebird was just so associated with the wireless capability. I mean, that was really all that was different, right? So now that everything is wireless, it's kind of redundant.
I suppose that's true, yeah. Well, that's the first wireless controller I ever owned or held in my hand, so.
Yeah, it was the first good one. Like, I had several wireless controllers for even going back to the NES.
Oh, wow.
There was one that was just terrible. And then I had a couple for the PS2, which are like okay.
Were they IR? They must have been infrared.
They were, yeah, I think so. They were like these Logitech IR controllers. I guess that was probably after the Wavebird even. So I was like, the Wavebird proves it can work. So maybe it's worth going back in on some IR controllers. And yeah, they're just not as good as whatever the Wavebird used. It was like radio or something.
Yes. Yeah, obviously that predates Bluetooth. So for our listeners under 20, there was a thing before that. That's yeah, it was some kind of radio signal, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. You had to spin that little dial to make sure you're on the same channel as the adapter thing.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Also have one of those in a box somewhere. I really probably should unearth all of that stuff. And
yeah, you should sell those to some diehard Smash Brothers fans or something.
Make a small fortune off of it. Yeah, exactly. Nice.
I was thinking about the GameCube controller because I was also desperately trying to get F-Zero GX to work in one of my emulators. And it was like fine for the most part, but I ran into another weird issue, which was the GameCube controller had those analog triggers. And I don't know if like modern controllers work that way. So when it came time to map those triggers in the emulator, I was just like, I don't know what to do anymore. I give up. I'll just do without the analog function. So that's why I want one of those, so I can use with my my sort of like sketchy F-Zero GX emulation.
I had hoped that Nintendo would have done one of their cool little like preloaded game devices they had, because obviously they did the NES and they did the Super Nintendo a little while later, right?
Like the minis.
Yeah, I had the minis with all of the games kind of preloaded to it. I thought, well, the next step clearly would be the GameCube. Why? Let's do that. But that has not seen the light of day.
Well, they didn't do an N64 one.
That's true. I guess that would be the next step, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or a GBA or something like that.
Yeah, they never did one of those either. I think the fact that, well, actually, I was going to say that they just put all that stuff on the Switch.
That's true. But it does exist. You just can't, not on a cool little toy.
Yeah. I feel kind of the same way about the Game Boy as I do about the N64. It's like, there weren't that many really, like, must-have games for it.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe the Switch app is all you need.
We were having that conversation on the Discord just recently. One of our members picked up a cool little retro gaming handheld and was looking for Game Boy and Game Boy Advance recommendations. It was not
F-Zero
a lot.
GX.
I think was the consensus. There were not a ton that anybody was willing to sort of like die on the hill for. But I don't know. Did F-Zero come up? Was that a Game Boy game?
There was a Game Boy Advance version at some point. It was probably closer to the Super Nintendo version. I don't think I ever played that one.
Yeah.
But, as long as people are keen on F-Zero this month because of F-Zero 99, might as well give that a try.
It's back.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. Man, F-Zero GX is so good. Just spending 10 minutes with that game this weekend, I was like, why isn't this just available for people to play? I think it holds up really well. It's still like, I think it's probably my favorite racing game of all time.
And it's on the Switch Online?
No, so the N64 version is, but the GameCube version is not.
Okay, you just said that. Okay, sorry, yes.
Yeah, sorry, it's confusing because they all have very similar titles.
Yeah.
But no, GX is the GameCube one, which I think is the definitive version of F-Zero. It's like, it's the first time where it actually felt as fast as it is, it feels like it should be. Like, I remember playing F-Zero X on the N64 and sitting super close to the TV to try and get it to feel like faster or like more immersive. Because as good as that game is, it's just, it's just a kind of a dinky N64 game at the end of the day. But
yeah,
man, F-Zero GX, it had like the whole presentation, it had the real sense of speed. It was just, felt like they had finally realized what they were trying to accomplish with that series.
Did you burn the back of your retinas from sitting that close to a CRT?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I didn't play that much F-Zero X, so it was fine.
In the name of science.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, good retro game weekend.
Yeah, I'm still having fun with F-Zero 99. Not quite as hard in the past week as I did that first week that it launched, but it's still a lot of fun. I still like leveling up and doing some of the races. I'm still kind of holding my own. I do okay.
Yeah, I played a few rounds of that.
Did you? Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, it's no F-Zero GX. Come on. But yeah, no, it was fun. It's interesting because it's not quite. I mean, it's clearly based on the Super Nintendo one, but it's kind of like just like a souped up version of it because it's like the graphics are much cleaner. You know, it runs much more smoothly than the Super Nintendo one. And plus, you just have like 98 other cars on the same track, which is ridiculous. But it almost feels like a stealth F-Zero remaster.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
It doesn't have, at least not that I've found, it doesn't have a way to play with friends. You can't sort of jump in and deliberately force it to put you in your, people on your friend list somehow within the same 98 or 99 players. I kind of wish that existed. That'd be fun. It does have leaderboard challenges and stuff like that, so you can sort of see how you hold up against your buddies. And but yeah, unfortunately, not a way to actually race against them, unless through luck of the draw you somehow get connected to the same instance.
Yeah, I was looking around. I was like, is there just a practice mode or something in here? Can I just trick it into letting me play the original F-Zero, but in sort of this updated engine? Because that would be fun.
Well, the tutorial is that. The tutorial is an offline training mode. Yeah. But yeah, I think once you get into the main game, I don't know if you can go back to that, can you?
Right. Well, I was just looking for the thing where it's like, give me the original Grand Prix mode where it's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 other cars. And I'll just play that because I found the 99 mode was very chaotic.
Yeah. I think the lowest end you can play with in the tutorial is 25. Does that sound right?
Yeah. It starts you out with 25 and then moves you up to 50. And I was like, I swear if it makes me play 75 cars after this, I'm going to throw this thing against the wall. But no, it just moves you up to 99 just right 99, after that. Yeah. Just like gradually, testing the waters, make sure you're ready for the 99 mode.
Cool. Well, good. I'm glad you checked it out. I wasn't sure where you were. I think I got the impression you were interested, but I didn't know if you thought it was just blasphemous that this existed or if you were willing to jump in. So,
no, I mean, I think it's a little ridiculous that they're throwing this out just because, not N64, F-Zero fans are just wondering what happened to that series. So for them to resurrect it as one of these 99 games is a little questionable.
Yeah.
It's like that Metroid Federation Force whole debacle.
Oh, yeah.
Although I feel like this is probably better received than Federation Force was.
Yes, it certainly seems to have generated less internet hatred. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. F-Zero fans are just, much better temperance than Metroid fans, apparently.
Just good people all around.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Speaking of good people, Extra Life 2023 is coming.
It's coming up sooner than you think.
It is Saturday, November 4th is game day. For those who don't know, what's Extra Life?
Extra Life is a charity event. It's actually a year-round thing, but as you said, November 4th is game day, and what traditionally happens is people from around the world sign up to play video games for 24 hours and solicit donations and all that good stuff in order to support their local children's hospitals.
Yeah.
So this is actually the 15th year Extra Life has been running as a charity event, and this will be the 10th year that we at the Video Game Hangover show will be participating, so that's exciting.
Yeah, cool.
We had quite a good year last year.
We missed the first 5. How is that possible?
I don't know. We weren't doing a show then.
What were we doing for those 5 years?
I don't know. I was like vaguely aware of Extra Life before we started doing the show, although I did not really I felt like there was just less publicity around it. Like streaming wasn't really a big thing, so I would hear about people doing like in-person gatherings to support whatever their local hospital was. But I don't remember hearing as much about it.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that does sort of predate the rise of, well, Justin.tv and stuff like that before people started watching other people play video games on the internet.
Yeah, people just being like, check out my Ustream channel or whatever it was back then. Anyway, so we had quite a good year last year. We had a lot of fun, raised a lot of money. We're up to over $14,000 lifetime just from VGH listeners like you, so that's amazing. And we are definitely participating again this year because we wouldn't miss it. So we just want to get the word out, or start getting the word out early because we still have a few weeks left. But we want to make it an amazing 10th year of VGH at Extra Life.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will have a kind of fun-filled day of entertainment available. We'll be playing games together. We'll be playing games separately. We'll be streaming kind of off and on throughout the course of the day. Haven't quite assembled our my game list yet. I'm not sure if you have a more concrete plan, but we still have a few weeks to go. But we'll definitely make hay of that once we know what our schedule looks like and what we'll be playing. So we hope our listeners and their friends and family will tune in and watch us play video games horribly and maybe donate and cheer us on. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Still a bit early. We just wanted to start, planting the seeds that this will be happening next month or 2 months or slightly over a month from now, depending on how you measure time. So we'll have more information on the website soon. Maybe not in the next week, but eventually. Until then, you can go to extra-life.org/team/VGHangover. So that's why we're going to have our own smaller address for this.
Yeah.
To get more information on the overall fundraising drive, how you can join us, and all that good stuff. And we also wanted to just extend an invitation if this is something that sounds interesting to you, if you're like a big streamer, if you love charity events, or if you just like playing video games, you are more than welcome to join the VGH team this year and do whatever you think that entails, whether it's like streaming stuff on your own channel, playing games with us. We will have more details in the coming weeks, but we just wanted to open that up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome. We've dabbled a bit in the past with kind of opening that up to other members of the community and friends and other folks we game with, and it always helps kind of motivate us through the weekend and gives us more people to play video games with, and it helps line the coffers a little bit more with a few extra folks soliciting donations for the charity. So we'll take all the help, we'll take all the motivation. It would be awesome if anybody wanted to join our team. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. So again, that's Saturday, November the 4th, coming up soon. So save the date.
And we will remind you no less than 6 times between now and then.
Right, exactly.
So we have teased Asura's Wrath multiple times on this show, and it keeps getting bumped for time. I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, you don't want to talk about Disney Illusion Island? I mean, very curious about that game. I
do. But I don't know if I can go another week and say, with apologies to Asura's Wrath, we'll get to it later.
Poor Asura's Wrath fans.
So the floor is yours, DJ Ross.
Oh man! So speaking of Final Fantasy 16, remember that game? Remember when that came out, and it was just a weird game, or like we weren't even really sure it was a game, right? Because it was just like. Felt like you were just watching a movie for a lot of it.
It was a movie with occasional kaiju battles and even more infrequent button presses.
Yeah, like sometimes you have to push a button. Sometimes you're like, oh, that's what that button did. Sometimes you just felt like, I wonder if I'm like, there's even a point to me being here. Maybe I can just put the controller down.
When does a game become not a game?
Yeah. I feel like Final Fantasy 16 really exploring sort of the boundaries of that question. And the whole time I was playing that game, I just thought, well, this is definitely something that has not been done before. Or has it? Has it never been done before? Because it, in the back of my head, it kind of reminded me of this other game that had come out roughly 10 years earlier called Asura's Wrath for the PlayStation 3 and I think Xbox 360. And longtime listeners will remember this is actually not the first time we've spoken of this game on the show. We talked about it briefly when it originally came out because they released a demo of a chapter that's like well into the game. And the demo was basically these two guys, these two very large men, very large, very angry men, just beating each other up on the moon. And this demo just kind of came out of nowhere. It's not like it wasn't really associated with any existing IP, despite being like a big Capcom game. It was just this weird demo that did not have a lot of like especially deep gameplay in it. It was like a lot of cutscenes and QuickTime events and just a lot of screaming.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of like talked about it on the show to make fun of it a little bit because it was just so weird. And we were just like, this is not a game. What is this?
I think I was peer pressured into playing that because I had zero context for what it was, who made it, why we were playing it, but it was a new demo.
Well, nobody had any context.
Yeah.
We were all on the same page with this
I was not alone in that? Okay. Yeah, and I think I would have to roll back to that episode to honestly remember what I said about it, but I recall being confused.
Yeah. I think, like, I specifically remember thinking, like, we have to talk about it on the show because this is so weird, and, like, maybe we can figure out what this is all supposed to mean.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I kind of just, like, forgot about it for 10 years until Final Fantasy 16 came out and made me wonder, like, what is the minimum amount of sort of interaction required to be considered a video game? And when are you just a 60-hour cutscene? And since then, in the last 10 years or so, I feel like there's been, like, Asura's Wrath has gained a bit of a cult following because it's just kind of this weird oddity. And, I never really spent any more time with it after that demo. But I recall people talking about it sort of in the same way as Final Fantasy 16, where it's like, well, it's a little less like video game. It's a little less interactivity than you would normally expect from, I guess, it kind of describes itself as like a brawler kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, let's go back to Asura's Wrath and see if this was really the sort of like prototype for Final Fantasy 16. I wonder if there's any lines we can draw between those two things. And sure enough, it's a surprisingly similar experience. So despite being billed as like a brawler, it ends up landing much closer to being, I guess, like an interactive anime is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Where there are certainly sections of it where you are pushing buttons and making Asura, the main character, do all these martial art moves and these crazy, like, over-the-top anime finishers and that sort of stuff. But there's like a lot of story cutscenes. There's a lot of sequences in the game where you're like just mashing buttons or doing QuickTime events, which sometimes it's unclear whether they have any impact on what is happening on the screen.
Which I distinctly recall being part of my experience with Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Am I doing anything?
It's like, why am I here? Yeah. And I just want to be clear, I don't think, like, so I went back and I played the entire thing, the entire game, asterisk, more on that later. I don't know if I would say it's like a good game, but I had such a great time just getting through it or just experiencing it. That I think it's absolutely worth going back and checking out, especially if you played Final Fantasy 16 and were left thinking, like, oh man, this is interesting what they're doing. I would love to see other games sort of explore this format, because it's more or less that's what it's doing. That's what Asura's Wrath is doing. So, just as some background, so this was developed by a developer called CyberConnect 2. CyberConnect 2? I think that's right.
That's what it says here on the wiki, yep.
They are most notable for, they've done like a bunch of Naruto games, and this feels like their attempt to just do something on their own, like make up their own thing. Like I said, it's not based on an existing property. It's definitely not based on Naruto, which I know very little about. I couldn't tell you if this is like ends up being very similar to that or what you would expect from a Naruto game.
It does not to cut you off, sorry, but it does say here in the wiki that it does take elements from Hindu and Buddhist mythologies.
Well, yeah, but it's not like, based on, Buddha's Wrath, that famous manga series. So they kind of came out with their own original thing for this. And the premise is that, so I knew there was like some Buddhist references in this. I thought, or just because of that, because you got a little bit of that in the demo, plus the guy's named Asura, that, maybe this takes place in like sort of medieval Japan or something. Maybe that's why there are these two big like martial arts guys fighting each other. The game opens up with a shot of this big mountain. I was like, is this Mount Fuji? Is this what's going on? And then the camera just pans immediately to outer space, and on the screen in text, it's like Shinkoku Planetary Defense Fleet entering the atmosphere. I'm like, okay, so this is, it's not quite the medieval Japan setting I was thinking. It takes place in this kind of alternate version of Earth, and you have this like spacefaring civilization that is led by the 8 generals of Shinkoku, or whatever they're called, who are fighting this endless war against these demons called the Goma, and they're like trying to battle over the souls of the population of Earth. So they're just fighting this endless war. They encounter the leader of the Goma, essentially. They fight this big battle to, put it back into hibernation or whatever. Some other stuff happens. Asura is immediately betrayed and like sent, like exiled down to the planet, where he awakes like centuries later and discovers that the 8 generals have rebranded themselves as the 7 deities because Asura has been exiled. And now they are just straight up like murdering the people on the planet to absorb their life force to power their gigantic anti-Goma weapon. And Asura is very upset about it. So the rest of the game...
Would you say he's feeling wrathful?
He's very wrathful. Well, so like each of the deities or the generals or whatever are meant to represent some facet of like humanity or maybe some like Buddhist... what is it? Is it the Eightfold Path? How many paths are there in Buddhism?
I don't know. Yeah.
But anyway, his facet is wrath, so that's sort of like he's the embodiment of wrath. But yes, he is very angry about it. So he spends the rest of the game just trying to take out the rest of the 7 deities, and it just turns into a giant sort of like anime revenge story after that. In which you do a lot of sort of button mashy battles and a lot of really over-the-top QuickTime events. And interspersed between all of these, there are just a lot of scenes where, you're not really doing anything. You're just watching the story unfold like you would watch an episode of a TV show or something. And this is my favorite thing about this, is there's not really a better way to say this. They just went for it with the presentation and trying to make this an interactive TV show. There are sections where, it looks like you're playing a video game. And then there are cutscenes which look like cutscenes from a video game. But then you would just get to a point where, the action freezes and it says, to be continued. There will be a little teaser for the next episode, complete with like voiceover, sort of explaining what you can expect, just like you would have at the end of a TV show.
Oh, wow.
There will be like these brief opening and closing credits. So they just went all out with it. And it's kind of amazing to see. It's kind of amazing to think that this got made in 2012, when I feel like the presentation in a lot of games was still something that developers were just starting to consider.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, was Alan Wake, right? I think had a similar sort of approach where it was, it was one big game, but it was episodic and had kind of an opening credits and next time on Alan Wake, and they did a little teaser of the next
they did
episode.
a little recap and that sort of thing.
And immediately, roll credits over with a cool pop song playing in the background, and then segue immediately into the next episode. So it's I don't know which one came first. I'd have to do some math on that, but it's cool that Asura's Wrath has that structure and just sort of embraced the, listen, we're doing something that's a little less video gaming and a little more, traditional media television experience, and really kind of embraced it.
Yeah. They've been very thoughtful about it. Like the game is divided up into 3 or 4 chapters, I think, and then each one is again divided into these smaller episodes, which end up being like 15 or 20 minutes long. Like they're not very long.
Oh.
And this is part of the reason why it took me so long to get through this entire game, was I would play one of these things and it would cut to like the to be continued freeze frame and do the preview of the next episode. And then I would just be sitting there at the screen, which is like, continue or go back to the main menu. And I kind of thought, like, I kind of want to just go back to the main menu and put this down for 24 hours to give this episode like time to breathe or whatever before I get back to the next one. I don't want to binge this entire thing.
Right.
But the format is so novel. It was such a surprise. My favorite thing about it is that I don't know how much anime you watch. I have not seen a whole lot myself, but like before the commercial breaks, typically they will cut to another interstitial screen where it's just like, it's usually like the episode title or just like the series title. So they show this interstitial card, then they go to the commercial, and then when you come back, there's another card, which is like something else that happened in that episode before the episode resumes. And they do that in Asura's Wrath, which is like, what are you cutting to? There's no commercial breaks. They just have the same thing just to break up the pacing, I guess, where you'll be playing a scene and then the cutscene concludes and they go to this like cut to commercial card, and your brain kind of goes, okay, well, here comes the commercial break, and then no, it just cuts immediately back to the game. So it's just this totally unnecessary holdover that they included just because it makes sense for the the TV episode format,
sure,
which I think is delightful.
I wonder if this is pure speculation based on nothing but you saying that, but like it would be interesting if there was some conceit to like, hey, and we'll make a bunch of fake commercials that go in between.
Yes.
And just somehow that never happened for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally see that, if they had 10 times the budget and they just went completely all out, they would come up with all these like fictional products and everything they could toss in there.
All filmed in FMV, right?
Yeah, like put in an ad for a Street Fighter 4 or whatever was current at the time. Really good, really good. It really made me wish that, like that Star Trek game that came out a few months ago, that they had leaned more into it than they did, or they ended up doing in that game, because like that is another thing where, it definitely felt like they were trying to ape the TV show, because they would have sections, like every new chapter in the game would have the little episode title up in the corner, but they never had like the title sequence. They never had the big dramatic, like, close up on a character's face before they cut to commercial. Like those other little trappings from just being a TV show were not really in the game. And I think that would have been so perfect for it. But then like playing Asura's Wrath, they're like, oh, these guys have got it figured out. They like, somebody should be paying attention to this. They should be incorporating this into all episodic games going forward.
They figured it out 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's cool. This actually sounds like a cool thing. Like I'm intrigued by this.
It is like, more than anything else, it is just an oddity that is worth experiencing. Like, you maybe don't even need to go through the entire thing to get the point, but it's very brisk. I feel like it does QuickTime events better than something like Final Fantasy 16, because in 16 might not be a great example, because they basically just had like 2 QuickTime event formats ever. It's like, press the triangle button or press the shoulder button. Just figure out which one of those it's going to be. But in this one, they definitely put a little more effort to integrate it into whatever is happening on the screen. Like you have to mash a button if you're in one of those, like, if you're just like punching the guy 100 times, like you would see in Dragon Ball or something. Or my favorite is there are all these points in which Asura sort of digs his heels into the ground before he does a really huge jump towards whoever he's fighting, and whenever that happens, you have to you push down on the left stick and you push down on the right stick, and then he plants his heels and does his big jump. But it's such a funny thing where it's oh yeah, I guess that's how you would map that to a controller. But overall, it feels much better considered than Final Fantasy 16, where a lot of the sort of interactive cutscenes just feel like a complete afterthought and kind of pointless.
Yeah. I mean, the scourge of QuickTime events was pretty intense in the PS3 era. So to hear that somebody was kind of doing something unique with something that could be just a throwaway gaming experience is inspiring as well.
Yeah, it's really bizarre how well it works, because in general, I feel like QuickTime events are not good gameplay. But in this, when you're just watching a cutscene and it's Asura's getting really angry at this guy, he's just punching him harder and harder, and you have to every time he winds up the punch, you have to press the triangle button right as the circle narrows down on the prompt in the center of the screen. It's just oh yeah, I'm this is me punching this guy. This is me just powering up Asura as he fights his way through this cutscene. It's really kind of remarkable.
Excellent. Did you go back and play this on the PS3, or is this available on modern consoles?
So I played it on PlayStation Plus, the streaming thing, which previously PlayStation Now.
Oh, cool.
Which is it worked pretty well. Yeah, despite the latency you'd think would be a problem with the QuickTime events, it was actually fine.
Excellent.
But it does sort of highlight some of the controversy or some of the problems around the format of this game, which is that the fourth chapter, which the game wraps up kind of unsatisfyingly in the third chapter, and then there's this fourth chapter which really wraps everything up, that they released separately as DLC, because that was just the era of when you buy a game and there'd be that $10 sort of expansion thing that you needed, or the $10 online pass.
Yeah.
So there was aha, you're not getting the full ending unless you give us this extra $10 for this DLC.
Boo.
And yeah, which is, terrible. It's not great. But then the what makes it even worse is that the PlayStation Now version of this, the streaming version of it, you don't even have the option of buying the DLC. So you just cannot ever experience the full game on PlayStation unless you have the original disc sitting around.
Oh, that's weak.
Yeah, so that's disappointing. It is also on Xbox. I haven't looked into how the backwards compatibility worked, but I assume you can just go and buy the DLC if you're interested in it.
So did you see the fourth chapter on YouTube or something, or?
No, I'm trying to decide. I could watch. I could just go watch it. It's another 4 or 5 chapters making up the final, or another 4 or 5 episodes in the final chapter. But I thought, what if I just maybe I should just get it on Xbox, and then I could actually play through the final chapter. And, that would definitely be more interesting than watching it on YouTube, but I don't really know how invested I am at this point. But anyway.
Cool.
Asura's Wrath, absolutely worth a second look. I'm glad we kind of wrote it off in 2012 when it first came out, but definitely more going on there than I expected at the time. And a little disappointing that it seems like after this they just went right back to making Naruto games, because I don't recall, and I mean there's definitely no follow-up to this story or character-wise, but I don't really know if they ever attempted to do this again. I don't really know if I'd be interested in a Naruto version of this, because I'm not interested in Naruto, and I think that was part of the incentive of them branching out and inventing their own storyline with this. It's there's more appeal there for people who are not really Naruto fans.
Sure. Plus, as a developer, you own Asura's Wrath, right? You don't.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just borrowing Naruto.
Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe they've got it locked up in their vault somewhere, and they're just waiting for the day for Asura's Wrath to make sense.
Cool.
Maybe after Final Fantasy 16, and after all games just turn into this weird non-interactive cutscene format kind of deal, maybe the time will be right for Asura to return.
It'll finally get the respect it deserves.
Yeah.
So just did a quick search, and it is it's available in the Xbox shop. I don't know what they call it. The e-store? No, it's not what it's called. Whatever.
The X store.
The X shop. And it's playable on Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S.
Oh, good.
For $20.
$20, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have one of those devices and are looking for a quick and easy way to access Asura's Wrath, that might be the way to go.
Yeah. Treat yourself. Play some Asura's Wrath this weekend. just to repeat myself, not a good game. Like, gameplay really shallow, and definitely a product of like the weird 360 PS3 era. But like, was Final Fantasy 16 like, was the combat in that good? Was it better than Asura's Wrath? Hard to say.
Yeah. I mean, you just spoke enthusiastically about it for about 15-20 minutes. So I good or not good, you have clearly milked some degree of entertainment from this device.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I had a great time with it. But that's me and my weird proclivities.
Well, now that you've finished Asura's Wrath, you can play Asura's Wrath 2 if it ever comes out. You don't have to start.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be ready. I'm just gonna make it through that 4th chapter.
Yeah.
So don't release it next month or anything.
All of those lost episodes are available as well for like $2 a piece on here. So.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not like back in the day, you'd have had to pay $60 for the game, and then another 10 or 15 for the DLC ending, which would have just been outrageous. So $20. That's just like going to see a movie. This is probably like 10 times longer than a movie is. So, if you're one of those people who's like, well, I need to get my mathematical maximum enjoyment out of this, then it's hard to go wrong.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Nice. Put it on my list.
Yeah. Play it on easy mode. Don't stress yourself out about it. I played it on easy and it was great. So
yeah. It's like combo driven, right? It probably like light, heavy, if I remember that kind of stuff. It's
way simpler than don't even worry about it. Like if you can play Final Fantasy 16, you can play Asura's Wrath.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, it's quite an endorsement. Just put that on the box.
Yeah. Not especially deep gameplay wise, but it's probably not why you're there in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of maximizing your mathematical enjoyment of something, how is Disney Illusion Island?
It's fun. It's a cute game. It is a surprise. It continues to be a surprise as I play it. So, the conceit here, just to clarify, there is Disney Illusion Island and Disney Dreamlight Valley. And Dreamlight Valley,
Castle of Illusion.
There was a Castle of Illusion, was there not? I don't remember. But I don't know my Disney stuff. I'm not the world's biggest Disney fan. I generally don't keep up with Disney things. There are those adults who are very into Disney stuff. I'm not one of those people. I don't think I've seen a Disney movie in a very long time. I feel like they kind of peaked with Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's really kind of been not for me since then.
Not even the Pixar stuff? I mean, Pixar was like its own thing for a while, but
yeah,
now
I've seen some of those, not all of those. No. I've seen how many Toy Stories are there now? 3 or 4. I've seen the first one, I think. But I've never seen any of the Monsters movies or other Pixar things.
Okay, but this is like really classic sort of Disney stuff. It's like Mickey Mouse, right?
Well, it kind of. This is Mickey, Goofy, Donald Duck, not Daffy Duck, Donald Duck, and Minnie. Yeah. Are the 4 characters in this. So it is your sort of classic Disney characters, but presented in a very kind of modern way. I believe there is a cartoon like on the Disney Channel that is like the New Adventures of Mickey Mouse kind of thing that uses this art style. But it's a very, I don't know how to describe it, kind of quick, like, it feels like a pencil sketch almost, just a quick, like here, make a picture of Mickey Mouse, and like you jot out like a quick sort of like image of what you think Mickey looks like from memory. It feels like that. It like the proportions are a little bit off, the movements are a little are kind of floaty and stuff, and yeah, it just has a more modern sensibility. It almost kind of feels like a Ren and Stimpy animation, or what's the other one that it sort of reminds me of? It definitely has a Saturday morning cartoon kind of vibe to it, but like if you think kind of like late 90s, early 2000s Nickelodeon, it definitely sort of feels like it fits somewhere in there. So it is not kind of the Mickey Mouse you remember from old cartoons back in the day. It's not Steamboat Willie or anything like that. It's definitely kind of a modern interpretation of what these characters look like. And the conceit here is that it's a Metroidvania that is completely free of combat. So there are enemies that you will encounter in the course of the game, and your recourse is to navigate around them. Every chapter in the game gets you a new ability that allows you to do more stuff as a playable character. Things like swimming, things like being able to do a double jump. Things like being able to place your own platforms and things like that. You get over the course of time, and that gives you more and more access to more and more of the map, which is massive and sprawling and has tons of little hidden secrets and deep dark corners that you find your way, hopefully towards, in kind of classic Metroidvania fashion. You don't fight any of the enemies. At no point does Mickey Mouse get a weapon or a gun or anything like that. You don't really
not even a keyblade. Come on,
no keyblades. No, you don't really even kind of like bop them on the head like kind of classic Mario style. Your objective more than anything when there's an enemy on the screen is to avoid it. So you end up with a lot of enemies that will like, if you can like double jump and stick to walls, there's going to be an enemy that kind of slides up and down the walls and tries to knock you off. So your objective is to avoid them. There's going to be enemies that zoom across the floor and will like, there's a cactus that shoots little spikes out of its head. And your goal is to double jump over them and avoid the spikes as they go shooting past. So you're never really kind of fighting with anybody, even in the boss battles. And there are big time, like full screen enemy boss battles that you encounter. And it's never you actually like doing damage to the boss. You're always like running around and avoiding obstacles and flipping switches and doing double jumps to jump over his head and to open up a trapdoor that drops a thing and bops him on the skull and knocks him out for a second, things like that. So they've retained the purity of the Disney characters by making sure they're not necessarily kind of like engaging in violence.
It's all just sort of like this indirect, like secondhand violence,
right?
Being inflicted.
Exactly. But the biggest challenge throughout the bulk of the game is exploration, and like big time jumping challenges, to the degree that it feels a little bit like Celeste sometimes, where you have these really kind of intense platforming challenges, trying to, geez, I can see the area up there that I need to get to. There's 2 moving walls. There's 3 enemies on the floor and another one on the ceiling dropping bombs down. And you have to like use your double jump and your ability to create platforms and your ability to do X number of things to stick to the walls briefly. Like you have to chain all of that stuff together to find out how to get to that thing up in the corner. Which opens up a whole other corner of the map that you can explore and find new secrets and upgrades and all kinds of stuff like that. So all of the conceit of a Metroidvania game without any of the kind of intense combat. So it is a really interesting kind of proposition for how to structure a game around Mickey Mouse that is non-violent, but still has all of the stuff that makes a Metroidvania fun. I really dig it. There are parts of it that very much feel like a kid's game. You get little interactions and you get missions and stuff like that from the folks that you're helping. Mickey, of course, wants to be of aid to people. You're just trying to go on a picnic with your best friends, and you get pulled into some conspiracy, and you're like, "We can help you. We got this." And then Mickey runs off with all of his buddies and has to collect 1 million keys and do a bunch of upgrades and tons of acrobatics to be able to help them out. But it's fun. The little cutscenes, feel like a Saturday morning cartoon and are clearly sort of intended for somebody much younger than me. But then you get into these crazy platforming challenges and all of this like map exploration and trying to figure your way back to a room that you remember seeing, a door you couldn't get through before, but now you have a new ability that will get you through it. And it feels pretty intense from an exploration standpoint. I don't know if that part of it necessarily would resonate with a little kid. There are a couple of things you can do in the settings, little sliders you can turn on that kind of make you impervious or give you more hearts, which are the number of hits you can take before you don't die, of course.
Right.
The number of hits you can take before you turn into a little letter and get mailed back to the last checkpoint that you passed, which is a mailbox, conveniently. And you pop out of the mailbox and unfold and turn yourself back into Mickey Mouse. It's super fun, occasionally quite challenging, but just a really kind of creative proposition for building a Metroidvania around all exploration and zero combat.
Huh. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking, like, after Metroid Dread, I just felt like, well, this series feels like it's just turning into all combat and no exploration. Maybe this is the perfect counter-programming.
This is the surprise correction. Yeah, it is. What Metroid needed somehow was more Donald Duck.
Yeah.
I'll mention that.
Wait. So I lost track. Do you play as all the different characters in this, or is it only Mickey Mouse?
You can play as a single player. You can play as your choice of any of these characters. They all play identically, you can swap between them between saves anytime you want. Repercussion free. The game does have 4-player co-op, which has to feel just insane to have all 4 characters trying to do these platforming challenges, which are occasionally quite devilish, simultaneously. If you have other people at home with you and you want to play it with your kids or with your partner, there's an ability in Illusion Island for up to 4 people to play it simultaneously.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, would that help you on some of the like platforming or the puzzles or anything? Just having an extra person to do things?
It's funny you should mention that, because there's a conceit in the multiplayer that allows you to be of aid to other players, presumably less skilled or perhaps younger players who maybe need help, as you can give them a hand up. So if you're a more experienced player and you can get to a platform, you can, and this is one of the settings, I've not actually seen this in person, but you can extend a helping hand to another player and pull them up to the platform that you're on.
That's fun. Yeah. That's a nice sort of way to integrate that.
Super wholesome. And I think there's 3 or 4 other little conceits like that you can flip on that allow players to help each other. If you get stuck, if you're not good at platforming, if you struggle with the swimming bits because of X, Y, and Z. There are things you can flip on that allow you to aid and help other characters. It's funny because one of the things in there is if another character has taken a couple hits and they're down to their last heart, you can go over to them and push a button and you give them a hug. Minnie will give Mickey a hug or whatever, and it will refill their hearts for them immediately.
Yeah.
So super cute, super wholesome, very approachable for families or more experienced and less experienced gamers can have a good time together. So I've not been able to convince Sarah to play it with me, but I'm working on her. I think it would be fun, and I kind of want to see how some of these little helping hands work in the game. I think it would be really entertaining. So
that's cool.
It is very cool. It would be super easy to sleep on this. There was not. Again, like as a sort of confessed not a big Disney fan, I was like, geez, I need to immediately spend $50 on a Disney game. But I kept reading reviews for this and kept watching the trailers, and I watched this little gameplay like, why you should play Illusion Island. And everything about it just sounded super cool and super creative to me. And I think the fact that it's Mickey Mouse in it is irrelevant in a lot of ways, because what it does from a gaming perspective is so surprising and unique that it could be any popular character or pick a platforming icon of your choice and drop it in there, and it would make sense. It doesn't have to be Mickey.
Yeah.
But cool that Disney made this thing and made it approachable to a bunch of people, and it actually does something quite interesting with, the construction of a Metroidvania game. I can't think of another game that quite plays like this, so it is a pretty unique proposition.
That's really cool. I don't know if the format is exactly the same, but that game Chicory felt like maybe a little bit of a Metroidvania, maybe more of a Zelda game.
Yeah.
But you would occasionally acquire new abilities that would help you progress. And it was completely combat free. Actually, no, there were like boss battles, but it's not like every screen was riddled with enemies and hazards and everything. And even the boss battles, I think there was some way to either make them optional or just make yourself invincible or something like that to trivialize them. But there was also a co-op feature in that, which I thought, I didn't personally try, but I was very intrigued because it felt like it would be an enormous advantage solving some of the puzzles. Not in a bad way. It's not like undermining your enjoyment of the game and having extra help with the puzzles. But
yeah,
I was definitely doing some of them and thinking like, oh, well, this would be so different if there was just a second person able to manipulate things in the environment or paint on things, because that was primarily what you're doing in that game.
Right. I do remember which one Chicory is now.
Yeah. But the whole time I was playing it, I thought, well, they've actually made a fully combat free or largely combat free kind of Metroidvania adventure game, which I thought was very cool.
Nice. That is on my kind of wish list, but I've never gotten around to playing it. I know you were enthusiastic.
Yeah, I think you'd really enjoy that.
Yeah.
You should check it out.
Cool. The game that was sort of the touchstone for me as I was playing this that I remembered was Yoku's Island Express. Which is a big kind of huge map at Metroidvania, but your interaction with the world is as a dung beetle who plays pinball. It's just really kind of a weird thing to say, but you'll get to kind of a clearing that will have flippers and other obstacles and maybe an enemy that's a spider or something like that, and you have to fight your way through it, and you basically play pinball against them. And guess what the ball is if you're a dung beetle? But it's a delightful game. It's super cute. The music is great. I remember sort of adoring the soundtrack and featuring it on one of our kind of best music of the year episodes. But that too is you're not sort of directly engaging in combat. You're not fighting other enemies. You don't ever have weapons or guns or anything like that. It's really just if you like pinball and maybe think, geez, it would be cool if this was a Metroidvania. Yoku's Island Express is the game that does that. So that's the kind of other touchstone I keep thinking of as like a really creative approach to structuring a game like a Castlevania or a Metroid game, but doing things that are decidedly not Castlevania or Metroid. So I'll have to put Chicory on that list too. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, and the other touchstone that I'm just remembering now, as far as sort of the animation and character style, is the Rayman games, the modern Rayman games, Rayman Legends and stuff like that, which do have kind of a slapdash kind of disproportionate kind of character art style that I think looks super creative, and the Mickey, Minnie, and all the other enemies in this. I'm sorry, not other enemies. All your other buddies in this game have a very similar kind of approach to their assembly, and move kind of bouncy, like Goofy runs like he's a bag full of arms and stuff like that. So there's definitely this really thoughtful fluidity to their movement that again just does not feel like a ton of other games.
That's cool. I mean, Disney has such a strong sort of legacy of animation that it would be a shame if they put out a game and it was just like, oh man, these characters just look at how they're moving. It's so weird. One other detail I'll add is if you are a big Disney fan, there's tons of little collectibles in this that create like a little museum in your pause menu of famous appearances of Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy throughout animation. So you get cool little film cells and collectibles and artifacts and stuff like that from 100 years of Disney history.
that show up in your pause menu, and you can kind of thumb through anytime and read little notes about and stuff like that. So it's been fun to collect those things and to kind of read some of the Disney history there, and to realize how kind of legendary and how far back these characters go. I mean, Mickey Mouse cartoons were coming out in 1917 and stuff like that. So it's just staggering that in 2023 it's still kind of a relevant piece of entertainment and lives in video game form now. So yeah, for big Disney fans, there's definitely some fun collectibles in here you're going to want to seek out.
Cool.
But this is Disney Illusion Island. If you could not tell from the tone of my voice, I've had a really good time with it. I've put quite a few hours into it, and would definitely recommend.
Nice. Well, that's surprising.
You were prepared to be condescending.
I have generally a high opinion of all the Disney games that I played. I mean, Kingdom Hearts aside, but I don't blame Disney for that. There were some pretty good ones on like the Super Nintendo, and man, back when Capcom had the license on the NES, they were doing some work. They put out some good Disney games.
People love Lion King. That Lion King game is pretty legendary.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. I think that about does it. Unless you want to talk about Asura's Wrath some more.
Oh, should we talk about Asura's Wrath some more?
Next week, DJ. I'll save it for next week.
I'm really curious about the final chapter. I think maybe I will just watch that. See how it goes.
Why not?
Why not? I'll just hold a controller while I'm watching it so I can like push the buttons occasionally.
You get the full Asura's Wrath experience.
Yeah, I'll be the player too.
If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should definitely follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. You should join us on Discord. You can hang out with us and chat about video games. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com. And we would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you can find us. Maybe help us out by telling your friends about the show, too.
Yeah, it really helps us get the word out, bring in some new listeners. We really appreciate it. We also really appreciate Fear of Dark for our intro and outro music this week. If you'd like to hear more of his work, you can go to fearofdark.bandcamp.com and listen to his entire discography. Maybe buy his entire discography. That would be terrific.
Nice. We're coming up on October. Fear of Dark. This feels like a very October band name.
Ooh.
All right. We'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
And me, DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Bye.
Good night.
See ya.